Hi, everybody. Welcome to Bounce Back and Be Brilliant. This is a series of interviews that is celebrating everyday people who are doing extraordinary things just by being themselves, people who are facing obstacles, overcoming obstacles, and inspiring others through being the unique person that they are. And it's a celebration. And I'm delighted that today Veronica Biller is joining me. Oh, by the way, I'm Ragini Hildreth. You might know if you've come onto my channel, but she's joining me. And the reason she's joining me is because of her posts, her YouTube videos, and posts on Instagram. And what struck me about Veronica is her authenticity, her naturalness, her ability to share who she is just so seems effortlessly, and that inspired me. So welcome, Veronica. Would you like to just tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, so thanks so much for the lovely words. One thing about authenticity, I think, is that you cannot really define yourself. It's so hard because I feel like all people are so many things, and that's also about me. So I think the best way to say is maybe that since forever I'm on a journey of self-development, and right now I'm actually creating my own practice of self-development. It's called the Luna practice, and yeah, it's all about basically self-awareness and consciousness, and transforming your life by understanding yourself and understanding the world.
Thank you. So today social media is just everywhere, and especially people younger than me, your generation, you've grown up with it, and there are images everywhere, and images of other people, and images of the perfect life, the perfect look, the perfect clothes. And one thing that struck me recently is just seeing young women that I know, and just one day thinking, what's different about them? And realizing that over time they are having procedures that are actually taking them away from who they are, and they're starting to look like someone else. And because you are so natural, and you have your natural beauty and your natural self, I was just wondering if you could just talk about how you cope with the pressure to conform to certain images.
Yeah. So I think that for me, it was definitely a journey. I mean, authenticity, the way I'm presenting myself, is not just didn't just happen overnight. It was a very long journey, and to me, right now, it feels really alien, like how people have this struggle, with the body and stuff. And I think one thing that I've learned is that this is not about the body. It has nothing to do with the body. It's because we all have this feeling of intense unworthiness, and like it's basically about the inner self, and we reject everything to the outer self. And so we try and try to be perfect, to be the perfect lovable person by being perfect basically on the outside. But actually what is happening is that we feel totally disconnected from our own self-worth. And I think it's so hard for us to realize that we have it just because we are alive.
Mm.
And so yeah, and so I feel like with social media, for example, what I've definitely tried to do is I'm very conscious with it, so I do not engage in any kind of content that is toxic. And toxic for me is, for example, something that is just focusing on the outside. So a really good example is, for example, Kim Kardashian. I think that the way she's presenting herself is really toxic because she is selling the idea that, for example, the way she looks is because of one certain product, or because she is like buying this pill, or she's eating a certain way. But the way she's looking is because, as you said, she had plastic surgery. She has a team for makeup, for hair. Like, she spends probably 8 hours a day just looking the way she looks. And I think that is so ridiculous, because no normal person could ever achieve this. And yeah, I think it's really, really sad. But I think for me, the way to go is really to go inside and see, why are you rejecting parts of yourself? Why do you not like yourself the way you are?
So how have you managed to do that? So say 10 years ago, if you don't mind, sharing something personal, was there a point that you thought that you changed, that you thought, you sense that, maybe this isn't who I am, and that, I need to do something about this?
So yeah, I think that what happened in my life was that I actually struggled really with mental health. So I was quite, like, maybe that's like an anxious disorder, something like this. So I actually was at some point not even focusing on the body anymore. I was focusing on being extremely unhappy, you know. And I think this is how it started, that I was, no matter what I did, no matter, how I looked, or, I mean, when I was going out, like, I mean, I was always beautiful. That's also what you have to see on the outside. Like, I fit perfectly into the, what is called the standard beauty ideal, So I always got attention from guys and everything. But at some point I was just like, okay, that's not enough anyways. So what I did was basically to really look at myself. And I mean, it's an intense journey of, for example, these days what I do a lot is to meditate in a way that I have conversations with myself, to be like, okay, how are you feeling? And then to really feel the feeling that I have, and to become really real about that. And I think it took me a long time to realize that I feel very unworthy, for example. That's still something that I have. But because I'm being honest about it and I'm working on it, I'm on the journey to self-love. And that's what I think it is about. And then, like, right now, I can really, I don't know, I look into the mirror, I find myself beautiful. And I think that was really just because I'm working on the self-worth.
So, you were talking about when you felt like unworthy. Were you comparing yourself to someone? Because the point I'm thinking is that there's so much comparison. We
Yeah.
see the images, we see the perfect life. And I think sometimes we compare and think, oh, I'm not there. I don't have that. I don't look like that. And then that can affect, as you say, it's inside out, but it can affect the feelings. And then people try to change the outer because the inner is
Yes,
unhappy. So was there a comparison at any point?
definitely. I mean, when I grew up, there was no social media yet, but there was like magazines. So I would always, like, see old people in the magazines, the way they were looking, like photoshopped, or just, I mean, the 2% most beautiful people on this planet, right? But that actually ties perfectly into with my path of authenticity, because a big problem about this is that people share mostly when they look the best, Photoshop images when they feel the best, right? And they never ever share about their struggles when they don't look good, um, things that they are not proud of. And I think that's, for me, like, authenticity goes far beyond just kind of like being more natural. For me, it is really about social change, because this creates so much shame in people, right? This presenting of just the perfect self. And if you have a problem, you cannot connect to people you see on social media or on TV, because you feel like, oh my gosh, they are so perfect. I'm like, I'm like, somehow I'm weird, or that's wrong with me. And for me, it's like, I think I love celebrities that share about their negative sides. For example, Russell Brand. I think he's so amazing because he shares about this whole path, and he's so honest. That's a person I really respect, And then when you hear about celebrities, they, for 5 years, they have, for example, Britney Spears, such a good example. She has been like the perfect American girl, and suddenly she struggles. And everyone is like, oh my gosh, why are you struggling? I mean, the struggle was always there, right? If she would be real about her life, like, you would have seen from the beginning that she had lots of problems, of course, being a child star, but this side is always hidden. And I personally think it's amazing that she had, for example, when she shaved her head, because that shows, yeah, she's a human, and the life she was living was not healthy. And I respect her for that, and I'll send her so much love, because that must have been a crazy time for her.
Absolutely. I remember when I was young, obviously social media was not around, but it was magazines. And I remember when I was about 14 or 15 reading an article, and the whole article was about how the body shape, this is the perfect body shape, this measurement, this appearance, and even to the point where it said that your legs had to have this much gap between your thighs and this, between, you know, your knees and your ankles had. And I remember thinking, well, there's no way I'm going to measure up to that, because obviously we're all individuals. So I think things have moved along from that, maybe, but now it's all the images that we were talking about. So when you stand in your value of authenticity, how do you view competition? Because we've talked about a bit of comparison, and I'm just thinking about competition. Okay,
Yeah.
so you are living your authentic self. You are living from the inside out. It's a journey, as you said. You know, you have your issues as well. But how do you view competition?
Yeah. So I think that is actually a very interesting question, because the first one I felt like was a lot about body image, and I felt like that this is something that I'm not struggling anymore so much. But competition, wow, that's a big thing, because for me competition is far more about my skills, and that's something where I'm much less confident than, you know, like with my body. I don't know, you know, I love my body right now, but more than that. And yeah, that's something that I definitely struggle with, because I think it is so easy to think that someone else is like better than you, and you know that, yeah, you forget your own uniqueness, because I mean the core of authenticity is basically saying that you unique self, nobody can ever replace you, even if they say the complete same things. Like, it's your own vibe and your own story, right, that nobody can copy. But yeah, I definitely think that for me it's definitely a struggle, and like one of the things I'm working on. But I found it really beautiful. So, for example, I mean, you guys who are watching this, we actually did coaching schools together. And for us, I think that was one of the experiences that I loved in our group, was that there was no competition. We were so supportive of each other. We were like, I don't know how many were we, 12, 13?
About 12, yeah.
12, we are completely different people. And it was so beautiful, because I think that was one of the first times in my life where I really felt like I do not have to compete with anyone, because everyone's bringing their own. And even with clients, like you would work with completely different clients than I do, you know. That's nice.
I think in terms of our coaching group, which was 12 amazing people, we couldn't compete because we were, as you said, we were all so different, and we were all standing in our uniqueness. We kind of different ages, different races, different experiences, different interests, different spiritual backgrounds, different, you name it, everything was different. So there couldn't be kind of competition almost, because we were so like distinct. Each of us was so distinct. And I think that is like at the nub of this, because, you know, today, why I wanted to do this, I think there is so much, when I see younger people, pressure for them to conform to a certain image. And you inspired me, because just something you posted, and I thought, wow, this girl is really standing for who she is, whether people like it or not. And I suppose it's trying to encourage people to, hey, love yourself, you know, love yourself, because we are all unique, and the need for competition and comparison isn't there. So I did
Yeah.
have some questions for you at the beginning. One of them was about comparison, and one of them was about competition, which you've answered beautifully. And you've already touched upon this, really, because, but let me just see if you can unpack it a little bit more. It's like, how would you remain your authentic self when you are facing insecurity? You mentioned a kind about insecurity earlier, but, you know, like, say something happens now, you're faced with, you feel insecure about something. So how does your value of authenticity help you?
So I think that one of the main people are not authentic is because they feel shame, you know. Shame is, like, in my eyes, such a big issue in society, because so you grow up learning that some things are not okay, you know, to talk about, to feel, to say. And one of those things is emotions. Actually, that people struggle, for example, to cry. If you cannot be vulnerable in front of people, then how are you expecting yourself to be authentic? You know, for example, yeah, if you are with your friends and they say something that hurts you, and you want to cry, and if you don't let yourself cry, you know, you cannot be authentic. And I think that is the thing about what you said. If you're feeling insecure about it, it's all about vulnerability. And for me, it is one of the biggest, most important things to learn in life, is to become really vulnerable and to show other people your feelings, because only then you can get support and connection. And you cannot expect yourself to be the perfect confident person, you know. Like, one of my mantras is do everything every day something that is scary for you, because people always look at me, you know, even now, I bet everyone who's watching is like, oh my gosh, she's like the most confident person ever, you know, she's so confident, how can she do it? I tell you guys, I'm afraid every day. I'm very afraid of so many things. I walk out the door and oh my gosh, like people are looking at me, you know, all these things. Like even with authenticity, I'm right now doing a YouTube series. A new one is called Moon Consciousness, and it's an unscripted, unedited series. So I talk for 7 minutes and I just do something. And there's many like M's, there's many comments that, you know, maybe are not politically correct, or how can you say it in the sense that if you talk about like deep issues, people can take a lot of things like out of context, right? And so, yeah, I know already that I will get probably comments where people are like, oh my gosh, like, why did you say that and stuff? And of course, that will not be something that I'm looking forward to, you know, even talking about topics like periods. I mean, people have such a big problems with this kind of stuff. And it's really, really a big problem because people feel so alone in their struggle, you know? And so I think that the first step to becoming okay with being authentic is to really become okay with yourself being vulnerable, and also looking for people that you can be vulnerable with, because of course if people like shame you when you're being vulnerable, then how can you be? Yeah.
So how do you deal with people who write negative comments or post things about what you've said, taking it maybe not how you intended it,
Yeah.
out of
So
context?
so one big thing that I'm like actually really afraid of, and that is, yeah, because I'm a woman and I'm young, is, sorry, no, I didn't want to say it like this. I just feel like my biggest fear is being trolled, you know, especially by men. I mean, I also talk about feminism and I talk about gender inequality, and I'm really afraid that men are like gonna troll me and write like horrible comments that scare me. So I actually have this deal with my boyfriend that he will first look at all the comments and he will delete everything that is, you know, like hateful. Then when, for example, the other day I also talk about plant-based diet, there was this guy and he was saying about, you know, that it's not cool to talk about veganism online because to store data of social media, so many forests are being deforested and stuff. So he was like, it's very hypocritical. So I was reading his comment and I was like, he definitely has a point. You know, I told him, thank you for telling me, because I genuinely didn't know and I want to be a conscious person. But also I feel like, because, you know, he said like all vegans are militant, so I also felt this a bit, maybe he was being triggered. So with these kinds of comments, it depends. And if some people just want to pick a fight, and then I try to stay away. But one of my mantras is really try to take in as less negative and toxic information as you can. And of course, I mean, I'm always trying to be super reflective about myself, but I also realize that it's a way of taking away your power, you know, to shame you for the things you are saying and to make you really small in that. And yeah, women especially have been held small for such a long period of time. And yeah, many guys do not like it when you speak out about things. Yeah.
Well, it's really good that you've actually put in some boundaries and you've put in some support there to help you, which is important because, yes, you have been very open and very honest, and you don't want that to be open to attack. But it's really good that you've put those boundaries in. So I was just wondering if we could just circle back a little bit to your lunar practice.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about why you founded the lunar practice.
Yeah, so I always really enjoyed working with people, and also I feel like right now actually for me it's more like a almost like a life and death situation, because when you look on the planet, we have to become conscious as people. We have to understand why we are doing things, because yeah, we are destroying the environment, we are acting horrible towards each other, there's so much war out there. And to me, helping people understand why they are feeling bad and to help them feel good about themselves is a way to actually be socially active. Because if you are a person that is content and happy and has no shame, you know, really loves themselves, is authentic, then yeah, you will live a life that is peaceful towards others, peaceful to the planet. You will watch your diet, you will, you know, not dieting, I mean like you will eat stuff that is not bad for the environment. And yeah, you will like radiate love. And so that's why I found the lunar practice. And yeah, I would love it to become like a movement of openness, authenticity, and yeah, self-love.
Sounds amazing. So really, we're going to just wrap up this interview now. It's our first little joint venture. It's our first, you are, I said to you before we started, you're like an experiment to see how this all works. And thank you again for being so honest and open. It's been a pleasure, Veronica. And yeah, did you want to have any final things to say before we go?
Yes, find me on YouTube. I'm just starting to really do a lot of cool content, and I would love to connect with you guys.
Brilliant. Well, thank you for watching. So this is the first in the series of interviews that's called Bounce Back and Be Brilliant. And I have got some amazing stories, people who are going to tell their stories about how they have overcome difficulties or setbacks, or are just doing something that just they're shining in their uniqueness, like Veronica. So well done, everyone. Take care.
Thank you so much.